Hi, Ammar. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? We're ready, man. We're ready. The season is right here. I can feel it.
I know it's race week, which means we're running out of time to do some quick team war predictions. So we should
Oof.
probably get in and do them quickly.
We did say we were tired, so there's
Oh
that.
man, but we're going to be even more tired,
We
especially
are.
especially because the Australian Grand Prix is going to start at like 4 a.m. over here.
But I like it. It's in the night for me, so it's pretty good. Like this is good. The kids are in bed. Put the kids to bed, man. And there's predicted some rain too on Sunday. Look at that.
Yeah, right. Brilliant. So they go British complaining straight away and American optimism to follow. Isn't that
There we
great?
go.
You get the best of both worlds here.
There you go.
So, Mark, we're going to talk about Mercedes. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about
Mm-hmm.
George Russell and Kimmy Antonelli. But I did want to change the script a little bit
Oof.
because, look, I think our data set for Kimmy Antonelli is a little bit limited in that,
Really?
yeah, in that, look, we've got how well he did in Formula Regional. We know how well he did in Formula 4. He then skipped F3 and went straight to F2 and had a year in which the whole championship was transitioning onto a new car, and Prema, the preeminent team, weren't really that brilliant. And he had some highlighted results. He did well, didn't he? In Silverstone, he did well at,
He did
and
some of them.
and often whenever it rained, he seemed to be pretty on it. So it sounds like he's probably going to do quite well. Um, but I don't have a huge amount to go on, and I feel like probably this is a season too early for us to kind of go, yeah, George is definitely going to get beaten um,
Oh, no, no, no.
by
I
Kimmy.
would I disagree with you.
Go on.
All right. Well, so you're right in that this discussion cannot fully be had objectively because we simply don't have enough data on Kimmy. We also simply haven't had any head-to-head comparisons for the two. So that part is fair. But the one thing that is fair is we can talk about George's performances, and I think that that's nothing to write home for.
Correct. So
So yeah.
so let's do that because I think actually the most interesting thing about Mercedes is that George Russell is now their
Hmm.
team leader. And George's had a lot to say, but you, Omar, especially, have had a
Oof.
lot to say about George as well.
Yeah.
So I think we should probably get into it. Just for pure completeness' sake, let's just remember where you are coming at. The last time we properly spoke about George Russell, I think, was when he was on the track winning the Belgian Grand Prix in 2024, and you said, in his defence, might I add, I'm not a Russell fan. He wouldn't even be in my top five.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. So
And yep.
hit me. Why is George Russell not even considered in your top five drivers? In fact, can you tell me who you rank in your top five that shuffles Russell out?
Okay, so I'm gonna do this sort of off the top of my head now. I mean, obviously Max and Lewis are in there. There's no doubt about that. No, hopefully, we're not debating that. I would put Charles in there, of course, and I would also put Oscar ahead, which who you have anointed as the next coming of Michael Schumacher. No, you didn't say that, but you know what I mean. You picked him to be a favorite
That's four,
in
Omar.
win.
That's four.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. I would put Lando ahead of him right now, and I would also put Fernando ahead of him. And my order isn't necessarily in the correct sort of order. I'm just giving you five drivers I can think of before I would put George in there. So, and we can probably debate Lando, but look, Lando is a proven race winner now, and he's won
So
as
is
much as he has
George.
last year. Not quite as
He's won three
okay.
races.
Yes, I know. Races are how many has Lando won?
It doesn't matter. You said he's a
No,
proven
okay, but
race winner. No, no, don't
I
change.
know.
Amar,
Okay, I'm
one
not
of the
changing the
biggest
topic.
criticisms we had of our last video is that you kept changing the subject. You've done it again. It's not
No,
about
okay.
whataboutism. You said
I'm
Lando is a
glad
proven race winner, so is George Russell. Let's just make sure we've got that straight.
he is, but the quality of Lando's wins are much higher than George's.
If you say
It's
so.
simple. I mean, George inherited the Austria win. There's no other way around it.
Do you think the
Like that
Singapore
is
win,
not.
the Singapore win was an excellent high quality drive, was it?
No, look, it is not the same thing though, right?
And
I mean,
how
Lando
about
dominated the race.
The
You can
Dutch
say,
Grand Prix?
hang on, you can say
And
that the car was
George didn't dominate the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
those of you that were saying I was interrupting him, just see this, okay? All right. Listen, I'm
I
not
just don't want you to be
disagreeing.
wrong, mate.
I am just not disagreeing. I love to be wrong. I've told my wife tells me that twice a day. Anyway, that's not the point. I don't disagree. Like I said, well, you can debate whether George is better than Lando or not, but we know that Lando was in a championship fight last year. George wasn't. Now, there are mitigating factors. George didn't quite have the car, all of that. But we've also seen George do what George has done in Singapore. Who was he chasing then? Lando Norris. He could have gotten Lando there, but instead he decided to put it in the wall. And there are mistakes like that all over the place. By the way, remove me from all of this,
Can I
Shez.
just interrupt you once, just once, mate?
Please.
Just
Please
remember
interrupt.
that Lando Norris in a championship-winning car last season won 4 times. His only
Okay.
four ever in
Wasn't
Formula
championship
One.
winning. It wasn't championship
Did
winning the
it
whole
not win the
year.
constructors' championship though?
It did. It
Oh, okay,
did.
so
But
it is
you
a
know that
championship
that's
winning
not
car.
how. But you know that one car doesn't make world championships for teams, right? You know that. Come on, now don't do that. You're a smart guy, and you're a savant when it comes to this sport. You can't. You're being
You're
disingenuous
digging
here.
a hole for yourself, Omar. But continue digging. I
I am
like
not
it.
digging a hole. You are taking me down a rabbit hole. But let me just say this. We started this topic by deciding or talking about a teammate more, and I'll put it on the record here. I think that Kimmy Antonelli is going to get the better of George Russell this year. He absolutely will, and here's why I'll tell you that. Let's start with Exhibit A, right? And this is not my words. Drive to Survive, season 7, episode 3. Okay. This, if you think I'm the one, sort of gas bagging here, fair enough. I know nothing. I'm just an armchair fan of this sport. You just go and watch that episode and you watch Toto's words on the record when he's looking for a Lewis Hamilton replacement. He is desperate as HEEL, right? And he has let it known to the Netflix cameras and to all of us who were following him throughout the season. He told the news reporters everything. I understand that you've lost Lewis Hamilton. That is a generational driver, and I get the urge to replace him with a generational driver. But the way he was flirting with Max Verstappen when he had a George Russell in there, I mean, look, he was actively trying to get Verstappen to quit his contract to join Mercedes in 25. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know about George Russell, then I can't tell you. And there are specific words that Toto has used in describing George. He went out of his way to talk about how George did in Silverstone, which was a DNF for George in 24, right? It was a water pump issue that eventually got him retired. But you and I know, as you have defended Lewis Hamilton here in the past, that he was going to get usurped by Lewis Hamilton and the McLaren drivers and probably the Ferrari
Oh,
drivers even before he had the
he
risk.
did get overtaken by
He
Lewis.
eventually
There's no
did. He
question
yes,
about that.
he did. So that was a given. That was a race that he started on pole. He should have won. He looked like he was struggling in the sort of the wet dry conditions or dry wet conditions, those changing conditions, and he had no clue where Lewis was just like going through the field. And forget Lewis, like Oscar was going through the field, Lando was going through the field. So there's that exhibit. There's a Singapore exhibit, and then there are Toto's words. He is still looking for a Max Verstappen in 26. Can you believe that? He's still looking for that. He has not stopped that pursuit yet. But so all I have to say is, look, I'm not a George Russell hater. I know many of you are going to
I
come at me
think
by
you
saying
are.
that.
I think you are.
Okay, hang on. So let me finish, and then I'll give you the floor. Uh, I'm not a George Russell hater. I have maintained with you on this show and beyond that it is still TBD. The verdict is out on George Russell. There needs to be more done. And even Toto himself has said it that George has the potential, but he makes too many mistakes and he just doesn't seem to have it. Even Claire Williams, who gave George his first seat in Formula One, said that. Now, make what you will out of all of that, but these are people who have actively employed or are employing George that are telling you this. So I'm not even sure there's a debate after that. Now, we can debate whether Kimmy is going to be everything that he's promised or not. I'm happy to have that debate, but tell me I'm wrong on the George Russell bit.
Of course. So your argument, such that I understand it, is that Toto Wolff has been actively uh, seeking out, flirting with a four-time world champion, and you're using that as your main argument for saying that George Russell isn't very good,
Can I answer that question?
and your additional evidence is that he didn't do very well in Silverstone, and he didn't do very well uh,
Singapore,
in
Canada,
Singapore. And he did,
Canada.
okay. I'm just gonna give you something to chew on. All right. So,
Belgium.
we know that George had an interview with BBC Sport last week, alongside a little video, and he essentially intimated, look, you have to reassess me a little bit because I've just come out of 3 seasons against the greatest driver of all time, the greatest qualifier of all time. And over the course of those 3 seasons, I have beaten him in the head to head in qualifying on pace and in the head to head in the races in positions. Why, therefore, is he wrong? What is. I think he's intimating that he's better than Lewis Hamilton, right? Um, why is what he's saying not correct?
So wait a second. You agree with his sentiment that he's better than Lewis
I
Hamilton?
am giving you what he is saying, and I'm asking
Okay.
you to respond to him. Why is he
I
not
mean,
better than Lewis Hamilton? And in fact, let's peg that back a little bit. Even if he's not better than Lewis Hamilton, what is it objectively, rather than just listening to what Toto and Claire Williams have said? What is it that you see or don't see that George Russell
as
prevents
I
George Russell from being one of the
I
best on the
already
grid?
gave you on track examples when he was chasing
You've given me three
Lando and
examples.
Carlo. Okay, but how many do you need? How many do you need? You need me to give you 24 times 3 examples like for every season? No. These are the moments, right? We define drivers just like we say Lando bottles it, right? I don't say it, but people say it. This is evidence for against George too. He was actively chasing Lando and Carlos for the win in 23 on much fresher tries. Forget even trying to catch them. He throws it in the wall. He didn't even let Lewis win that race. So Lewis could have potentially won it too. But so that's not a nothing example. And you can't just dismiss Claire Williams and Toto. These are people who have team principles
What
that are
exactly
led.
did
Like
Claire Williams say?
they're not pundits. They're not pundits on TV that are saying that. She said that she look. I'm paraphrasing
Yeah,
here. I don't have the
yeah,
exact
yeah,
word, but
yeah.
she said George doesn't do it well enough when in the moments that it's needed.
Was that
Basically,
on
that he
Drive to
doesn't come up with it.
Survive?
Sure, it wasn't Drive to
You
Survive.
got
What
that
else
from
do we
Drive
have?
to Survive. Brilliant. Yes.
Okay, but I know.
A
Yeah, so
hard,
what's wrong with that? So what's
a
wrong with that?
hardcore,
So what's
a
wrong with
hardcore,
that?
absolute bona fide
Okay,
quote.
maybe, but okay, but listen. Okay,
They've
you can
already
say that
said.
about Claire.
They've also said.
Toto didn't need to say that. Okay, fine, fair. I give you that. Claire Williams made for TV drama.
Correct.
Why does Toto have to say that? And
Okay.
he's not just said it on Netflix. He's also said it in the news. And again, you're. I'm not saying that going after a 4-time champion is there's any cardinal sin in that. You absolutely go after a Max Verstappen. If you everyone would go after a Max. That's not the point. It's the way in which you go for it. It's the way
How
when
are you
you know
supposed to
that
do
your
it?
other drivers, Shez, you know that if Max had signed, here's how. If Max says yes, I'm coming to Mercedes in 25, who is moving out?
Don't know.
Yeah, you know who is moving out.
I don't
He's
know.
not going to give up on Antonelli because he knows that Antonelli is the next coming of Max, right? At least he believes that, and he said that. He's on the record with it. This is not my words; these are his.
Based on very little evidence.
I 100% agree
Yeah.
with you. Very
Okay.
little evidence, but these are the people who are making decisions. It's not you and I that are making. He is making he has no problem saying that. Why does he have no problem saying that? Now you can say, okay, he does believe in George, and this is a sort of passive aggressive way of motivating him. That's what you want from your number one driver, then, if that's what you're going to say. So my thing is simple. I have not seen evidence of George doing it in the times that it matters. He has won races, sure. You cannot take a win from anyone. A win is a win is a win. It is what it is. Fair enough. But it's also the quality of the win, right? And we have just not seen enough. And sure, he believes that he's better than Lewis or whatever. I think we debated a lot in the last episode on comparing Lewis and George, right? So I don't want to rehash that. But he believes it. Sure, he should. And he should put his name on it. Why not? I want every athlete to have that type of confidence. Sure, why not? But that's not how it is. And we know that Lewis struggled in qualifying last year. And we still don't know if Lewis will do better with this generation of cars. So it could be that Lewis was just struggling to be his usual self after everything that happened in 21 and the car just not being there. That could be a different thing. George, his targets were different. He didn't, I don't think he came in there thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to beat Lewis Hamilton. It
But
wasn't
he
even about
did.
that. But he did. Okay, but that's not because
So
he
why is
did.
that?
It's
Why is he
because
not better
Lewis
than?
didn't do.
Why is he not better than Lewis?
Sure, if you are you putting him in over Lewis, is that
No,
what
I'm
we're
asking you
doing?
the question. Why is he not better than Lewis?
He's not better
Why?
because he bottled it so many
But
times. You just saw
he
that.
beat Lewis over the course of the 3 seasons. Lewis bottled it more times than
I
George
don't
did
I
over
don't think
three
he beat him.
seasons.
I think we spent the last episode you telling me that George didn't actually beat Lewis in anything.
Amar,
So I don't buy that.
you're talking semantics here, but essentially in results, George did better than Lewis. So why is George
What
not better than
results?
Lewis?
What results?
Qualifying and races. What more
What did
results are
Lewis do?
there?
Yeah.
More
Where did
win.
they
So across the
in
three
the 3 years?
across
What
the
were they on
across the
points?
3 seasons, more wins, more
Uh-huh.
more out qualifyings. So
Okay.
who did better over the
Yeah,
three seasons?
George definitely did better, and
Okay,
that's
so
what I
why is
said. That's what I said.
so I need to ask you the question, why is he
Mm.
not better than Lewis? I'm not saying he is. I need to understand why you won't even rate him high enough to be mentioned in the same category as the other contenders that you
Five
talked
drivers.
about.
Yeah.
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 So I need to
I gave you
understand that because I don't really get it.
because the results that played out for Mercedes have to be taken with a pinch of salt. They were nowhere in the mix for anything credible over
So
the last 3 years.
okay,
So, sure, beating a teammate out for what
okay.
that means is fair. There's no problem with that. But that doesn't automatically elevate you to a certain level. That
So
doesn't.
why is it that Lando essentially bottles a championship in the fastest car on the
Hmm.
grid, right?
Hmm.
Winning a constructors championship, don't forget.
Does it? Yeah.
I'm telling
Sure.
you facts here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But George Russell winning races in a car that is probably the third or fourth fastest on the grid is not that good, is what you're
It
saying.
wasn't third
So
fastest
now
on the
you're
grid. There
elevating the
were
Mercedes. Okay, continue.
Shez, I'm not elevating the
So
Mercedes. You
how?
know, and I know, having watched these races, that there were certain conditions in which Mercedes did well. The same thing can be said about Lewis Hamilton's win. Silverstone was a very particular track where that happened. Las Vegas was a very particular track
Amar,
with cold conditions.
Amar.
Across
Even if
24
George
races,
wasn't
they spun.
even
Okay.
if George wasn't winning, he was out qualifying and out racing his 7-time world champion
Yes.
teammate. So,
Sure.
like, whether you think that
So
there
that's
are caveats to Lewis's performance or not, that reality is still there,
Shez.
and you're
Okay.
ignoring it by
The I'm not ignoring it. The
okay.
out qualifying can happen for one of two reasons. The other guy's fast or you're slow. Or it can be both, right? So I'm not saying it's definitive. I'm not the one saying he's better than Lewis Hamilton. I'm not even saying
He
he's better
is.
than Lando.
He's saying
Le-
he is.
like I said,
But
no
I
problem.
but
Say that. I have no problem.
I'm not
He
hearing
is.
a
I
co.
don't think Toto is saying that either,
Am I?
right? And I mean,
Am I?
and this is a championship. Okay.
I'm just not hearing a coherent argument as to why, other than
What is the coherent argument? You don't want to buy the fact that the people who have more access to data, who see this day in and out,
but they
are telling you
none of
publicly
no no
that
no no
that's
no
not
no
the case.
no no. Toto has never said George isn't good enough. He's never
He
said
doesn't
that.
have to say that. He doesn't have to say that. His actions say it. That's what
Because
I'm trying to tell
yeah,
you.
okay, all right. Let's talk because I think we need to get some stuff straight. This is going round in circles a little bit. So George, okay, fine. So Amara, your contention is essentially that Toto thinks that he needs to get Max Verstappen
It's on track and
because
off
he
track,
doesn't
both.
trust George. Fine.
Yeah.
So there are individual incidents in which George Russell has come a bit of a cropper. I agree with that. He definitely has. But that is to try and argue that any driver early on in their career, which he still is, he's only 3 seasons into a career in an absolute top level team and competing for wins and championships. And he was aiming for those things, but he didn't get it because the car hasn't been good enough. You're saying that we're not allowed to let that driver have any leeway at all. Now, I'm not saying he's the greatest driver on the grid. When he says, I've done all this stuff against the greatest of all time, I'm implying that he is better than him. I do not agree with him. Categorically, I don't agree because Lewis has tenure. He has been there and done that and proven it against the absolute best of the best. So that's beyond the question. But if you're going to use Lewis as a yardstick, when you don't have a car to use as a yardstick, because Russell has not had the car that his compatriot Lando Norris has had. He's not had the car that his competitor Max Verstappen has had. He hasn't even had the same kind of caliber car that Oscar Piastri has had. So it's really unfair, I think, to label him as not good enough based on that. But what you can
No.
do is look at how he has done against his illustrious teammate.
Okay.
And in 3 seasons, if you look at the entirety of those seasons, he has outqualified him and outraced him. And in 2 of those seasons, he has he has finished ahead of him in the championship. And in fact, in 2024, he becomes the only Formula One driver in the history of Lewis Hamilton's career to beat him in both qualifying and the race across one season. Nobody else has ever done that. Let's take that aside for a second as well. I keep coming back to these instances. You talk about the dips. I have to look at the peaks, because the peaks are what define the greats. If we're talking about how good Lando Norris is, and you're using his peaks as he won a dominant race in Holland and he won a dominant
Yes.
race in Singapore, well, let me just talk about the peaks that George Russell has had. Yeah,
Austria.
he has stuck a Williams on the front row of the grid. In 2021, he out-qualified Lewis Hamilton in a championship contending Mercedes. He was driving a Williams, right? If we're talking about moments. On top of that, he has also managed to qualify that Williams in Q2 more times than Albon has managed to do in his seasons in that car. He has also jumped straight into a car he has never driven, the W11 in 2020, and come within a whisker of beating Valtteri Bottas in qualifying, which is his forte. But you talk about him not being able to finish a race. He won that race twice before his team messed it up for him. So I will allow him the odd mistake under pressure while he is still desperate to get his wins in championships, something that Lewis doesn't have to worry about. He's done it, he's been there. He doesn't have to worry about those things in the same way that George does. And let me just get back to you about Toto. Toto has to say those things. He is trying to prize Max Verstappen out of Red Bull's cold, hard hands. Why? Because it strengthens his team to have a four-time world champion on their roster. Perhaps the best driver on the grid right now. I'm not saying that George is better than Max, but he's not outside of the equation either. But Toto has to do that. It strengthens his team and it weakens the other team. And in those situations, you kind of have to just trust that your lead driver is going to understand what you're doing and not take it personally, which is what you're expecting him to do, or taking it personally for him and judging him because of it. Those are my arguments for saying that George Russell, although not the greatest on the grid, is certainly top 5.
Well, thank you for making my arguments for me, because I agree 100% with everything you said, except for the fact that you're misleading everyone by saying that I am not wanting to recognize George Russell for anything. I told you that he wouldn't be in the top 5. He would be outside looking in. I gave you the list of everyone, and I said you could clearly debate whether he is 5th or not on that list. We can agree on who the top 4 drivers are outside of him, right? We can easily do that. There's not going to be a debate on that. So this is
Wait, are you
everything.
saying there's
Well,
no debate? For me, George Russell's better than Lando
well,
Norris.
first of all, the debate
He's
is whether
definitely better than
who is
Lando
going to come
Norris.
out. Was it going to be Kimmy or Russ? That was our starting
Yeah, so
debate.
for me,
Okay,
that's
so
a
fair enough.
non-starter. It's
Fair
George,
enough.
no
So
question.
okay, so yeah, we will find out at the end of the year what that happens. And here's what I'm here to tell you. Yeah, everything you stated, I agree with you 100%. In fact, I would be making the same argument for George Russell if I would. What we're trying to debate here is whether we see Antonelli being able to challenge him or not. And what I'm here to tell you is that the people that who are sitting in front of this data all the time are saying things to us for a reason. And whether you believe it or not, or whether you think he's trying to get Max Verstappen or not, that is a different thing. If you truly believe that George Russell was at that level as a Max Verstappen, you would not need to do that. You would absolutely not need to do that. So you can't sit up here and tell me that his public flirtation, Toto's of Max makes sense. Sure, I can buy the argument that he was trying to hit Red Bull hard because he has it in it for Christian Horner. I would agree with you. Everything that you said about George's performances, him putting a Williams in Q3 and in top 10, Kevin Magnussen also qualified for pole 1. So, but we can't do that. We can take one odd
In the
examples.
same conditions.
Sure, in the same conditions. There's
That's not
always
what Kevin
conditions.
Magnussen
There's
did.
always, and no one is questioning George Russell's Saturday prowess. That was not part of our debate. So that's fine. If you want to bring up qualifying, that's great. And he out-qualified Lewis. Fair enough. That is 100% correct. I did not deny that. Look, if we want to talk about peaks, then I want to look at Kimi Antonelli in that free practice when he crashed. Before he crashed, he was logging in some pretty awesome times that suggest he might be even quicker than Max. Now, I'm not saying he's quicker than Max. Please don't get that wrong. But he has the raw speed and the raw ability to do so.
And
And
George
I think
Russell
that he
doesn't, is
will.
what you're saying.
Hang on. I think that he will make mistakes. Absolutely, as any rookie does, particularly a rookie that's not even 20 years old. I get it. He's going to make those, but you're going to see time and time again the eye test and the stopwatch will tell you that he is the quicker guy. And George Russell isn't. And look, again, you're making me putting me in the corner where I'm sounding like a George Russell hater. I would love to see him compete head to head with someone of his own and with a car that's out there. So I will give you that. George Russell has not had the Mercedes car that I think he would have hoped for when we hopped in there in 2022. It just hasn't happened. That's not his fault. I 100% agree with you. He out qualified Lewis and on occasion beat him, and they were equal on points pretty much for the three season. That's fair too. But I think we put a lot of that in sort of Lewis's corner where we're saying all kinds of things like he wasn't in sync with the car, Mercedes didn't take his direction in terms of development. There were many mitigating factors that you cannot simply throw out. Otherwise, you're just telling me that Lewis Hamilton stunk for the last 3 years. That's pretty much your debate. And if that's what you want to say, fair enough. But I'm not saying that Lewis Hamilton stunk. I think that Mercedes as a whole did. And George's bar was low to cross. Therefore, he would not, anything he would do, we would be talking about him in a positive light. So I am telling you once again, as we started this debate, this is not an objective decision 100% because we have yet to see Kimmy Antonelli complete one full race. But the signs, everything that you look around, if you're paying close attention to it and there's a gut feeling to it, there's a sense here that guy is arriving and he is going to be there to fill the Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen shoes. And I think this year is going to tell us a lot because this is the contract year for George. He's gonna do well. I imagine he will. We're just gonna have to see how good Mercedes are.
Okay. I need to say this because
Say
I
it.
don't understand this.
Say what you want to say.
What more does George Russell have to do? You are making excuses for Lewis Hamilton because you don't want to give any credit to George
Me
Russell.
making excuses for Lewis Hamilton. People from the last video
That's
are
right,
going
but
to get really confused.
we're in this video
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
I know. I'm not making excuses for Lewis at all.
Focus.
I'm not making excuses
But
for
you
Lewis
are
at all.
because
I just said that there are mitigating circumstances. There's
so
a
that's
difference
excuses.
between that's not excuse. There's a difference between
But they were
justifying and
driving the
explaining.
same car,
They
Amar.
were driving the same car, but where did they end up on
And
points? They were neck and neck.
George won
But
2 seasons out of
hang on,
3.
where did they end on points? You just rattled off stats, right? 3 seasons. Where
Yeah,
did they end up on
yeah.
points?
Same
No, no,
number,
no, 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 not
same
yet.
number of points. There,
Same
answers
number
your
of points.
question.
There you go.
Okay, now
Same
answer.
number of points.
So now answer my question: who won more seasons out of 3?
I don't know.
George. So who
I
won?
cannot
You won.
remember. It's
George.
just not that.
George won 22
Okay,
and 24.
great.
Who
They
won?
ended up with the same number of
Who?
points. If we were doing a championship tally,
Yeah,
they'd be tied.
we don't. Yeah, but the thing is that you don't win championships based on how well you do against
You
your
get how many
teammate.
points? Your points
Against
decide
your
that. You don't
teammate
have to
across
win all races.
multiple seasons. You just have to do it in one season.
Oh,
So
great.
if we're
Okay.
doing titles,
Really? Okay. So where did Russell end up in 22?
if we're doing titles,
Uh-huh.
then George Russell, if these were championship seasons, he would have won 2 to Lewis's 1.
If they weren't that. If
Right.
they were, they
So
weren't that.
so what is the point? What's the point of your points argument? There is none.
It's this. My point of the point argument is that
my
you can
God.
give stats that support your position, and I can give you stats that oppose your position. It just is a matter of which
But
you
the
value more.
stopwatch also backs my argument. My contention here,
Doesn't. He wasn't quicker.
he was quicker across 3 seasons. He was quicker,
Okay,
head
so
to head
Lewis Hamilton
and
is
on
washed.
pace.
All
No,
right, fine.
I am
So-
not saying that. And this is the problem, right? You're coming back at me with a ridiculous argument. I am not saying that Lewis Hamilton is washed. The other side of this argument is that George Russell
I'm not.
is better than you think he is. But you will not accept that, and I do not understand why. I want to put this to you, Omar. I've been thinking about this.
Let me no, whoa, 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 whoa.
Go,
Let
go.
me stop you there. Let me stop you there. Let's get this on the record. I don't think George Russell is bad.
Okay. Omar,
I'm not going to put him in the same line as Lewis Hamilton just because he won 2 out of
I'm
the
not
3
asking
seasons,
you to.
coming 6th in the
I'm
championship.
not asking you to.
So I'm not saying that. And what I just also said is I don't have facts to tell you that he's going to come out ahead of Antonelli, but there's a reason Antonelli was put in that seat, and there's something there to suggest that he would come out there. That's all. By the way, I'll go on the record and tell you this. I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'm not a George Russell hater, but I told you that I gave you four guys that are definitely ahead of him, and the fifth one we can debate all day long. For me, he's outside looking in, but you could make a case for George being better
So,
than Lando.
so,
I wouldn't argue with
okay.
you
So
too much.
Ammar, I would already argue with you that you are doing what you're saying, right? You can say to the camera as much as you want, I am not a George Russell hater, but your actions and your words suggest that you are. I'm just trying to
No, I'm just not
understand.
willing to.
I'm
Well,
just trying to understand why.
yeah, I'll give.
I don't even understand why you won't put him above Lando and Oscar. Can you
I
explain
said
that one
it's
for me?
tied. I said it's tied. I gave you four drivers. I didn't put him above Oscar.
No,
I
but
said
why not?
Max,
Why are they not?
Lewis,
Yeah.
Max, Lewis. I said Fernando, Charles. Those are the four drivers, and then from there on, we can compete on. We can debate who the fifth one could be. I would put Lando only strictly because of this. My logic is he was in a championship fight.
And why
Now,
would you
that
not
may
put?
not be the logic that you agree with.
Okay,
That may not be the logic you would agree because there's only one
so
way to pick on this.
okay,
Everyone can decide what their measurement
last
is.
question because I think I can't believe it. Why?
You
So
really can't.
why would you? If you take your Ferrari hat off for a second and forget that he drives for Ferrari, why is Charles Leclerc quantifiably better than George Russell?
Look, I don't want to do a, excuse me. I don't want to do hypothetical because there's no point in doing that. Just put Charles in an Alfa Romeo and then we can do comparison. That doesn't make any sense. You are right to say that people have the car that they do. We only have the results to go off of. So it is what it is. So if you're going to argue that he was better than George was better than Lewis the last 3 years, then there's plenty of evidence to say Charles Leclerc was pretty good, pretty damn good, and he was going toe to toe with Max too. So again, data is
But he had a
there.
car
They
to do
tell
it.
part of the story.
He had a car to do
Okay,
it.
but
George didn't.
okay, George made wrong choices. What can I do? Like that's not
Well, it
something that
didn't.
you
It
can
wasn't
kind of
much of a
do.
choice. It was in the Mercedes driver program. So
Go to Red Bull.
So
Go
he ended
Cleveland
up.
Horner to put him in the second car. Go ahead and do that.
Okay, so now we're saying that George isn't as good as Charles because he made poor career choices.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, so tell me why Charles is better than George
So
Russell.
listen, the first thing you need to do is not twist things. Okay, now you've gotten good at this, so you're twisting my statement.
Before you
Me
tell me that I'm
saying
twisting stuff, right, can I just
me saying
clarify that you said that Charles Leclerc is better than George Russell in your own ranking? I'm not
yes, I
twisting
did.
stuff. So I'm
I
asking
did.
you
Oh no. Hang on.
why
Yes,
is Charles
I'll
better
tell
than
you
George
why.
Russell?
I'll tell you why. The twist is when you do this. Take off your Ferrari hat and then give me a hypothetical. That is a twist. I'm saying Charles is in the top four because of his results. If I take that off, then of course you can rank him 20th. What difference does that make? So the twist comes when you ask a hypothetical and then say, "Oh, you're judging somebody because they have these results." That's all we have to go off of. Those are the results. It was George who was upside down in Canada. That's not something that I decided. Or sorry, in Melbourne. That's not something that I decided to do. That is what happened. There are many moments where when the moment has arrived and when it's time for to go, George has not been able to go.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to concede that if he does do that, I'll come back here and say I was wrong. I have no problem with that.
Okay, all right. Let's draw it to a close. You've brought up Melbourne, where George ended up on his head in a race where Charles Leclerc finished second to his appendicitis-ridden teammate. And on that
That's fine.
road,
He still finished
we should
second.
probably
Wasn't upside down though.
in a car that could finish that high. On that note, we should
Finished
probably
first or second, so
we should probably end it. That was more heated than I was expecting it to be. George Russell, better than Lewis Hamilton. That's what he thinks. What do you think? Leave us a comment. Please like, please subscribe. We'll read every one of your comments and we'll reply to as many as we possibly can. We will have more angry debate to come. More opportunities for you to
get upset with us.
Tell us off for interrupting each other. But we will see you guys in the next one.
Later.
Recording stop.